I sat on the couch, weary from my business trip, eager to relax in the comfort of my own home. But as I walked through the door, something felt off. The furniture had been rearranged, and an unfamiliar floral scent lingered in the air. "Welcome back, dear," a voice called out from the kitchen. My mother-in-law, Eloise, emerged with a smug grin. "I've made some changes around here. You'll adjust soon enough." My heart sank. What was she doing here, and why did she sound so permanent? Before I could formulate a response, my husband Landon appeared. "Honey, I'm so glad you're home," he said, kissing my cheek. "We have something to discuss." I glared at Eloise, then back at Landon. "What's going on? Why is your mother here?" Landon shifted uncomfortably. "Well, you see, I've invited her to stay with us. Permanently." My jaw dropped. "What? You decided this without even consulting me?" Eloise chuckled. "Don't be so dramatic, dear. It's for the best, really." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Landon had welcomed his mother into our home, our sanctuary, without so much as a discussion, and there she stood, acting as if she owned the place. "How could you do this behind my back?" I demanded, my voice trembling with disbelief. Landon's brow furrowed. "Mom needs us right now. She's getting older, and we have to take care of her." "Take care of her?" I scoffed. "She's perfectly capable of taking care of herself. This is our home, our life together. You had no right to make this decision alone." Eloise tutted disapprovingly. "Such a fuss over nothing. You'll thank me later, dear. I'll whip this place into shape." My fists clenched involuntarily. Landon had betrayed my trust, our partnership, all for the sake of appeasing his overbearing mother. And as I looked into Eloise's smug, triumphant eyes, I knew this was just the beginning of a long, arduous battle. Over the following weeks, Eloise made herself right at home, much to my chagrin. She rearranged furniture, redecorated rooms, and even started receiving mail addressed to our house. It was as if she had always lived here. One day I stumbled upon a stack of bills while looking for a file. Electricity, cable, even her personal credit card statements, all sent to our address. I confronted Landon about it. "What is the meaning of this?" I demanded, waving the stack of papers. "Your mother is having her bills delivered here now?" Landon sighed, rubbing his temples. "She's having some financial troubles, so I offered to help out for a bit." "Help out? By paying her bills behind my back?" I couldn't believe his audacity. Eloise sauntered in, overhearing our conversation. "Oh, don't be so dramatic, dear. Landon is just being a good son." I glared at her. "This is our household, our finances. You can't just invite yourself into our lives like this." Now, Eloise clucked, waving a dismissive hand. "No need to get your panties in a twist. Landon knows what's best for his dear old mother." My blood boiled at her condescending tone. "You have no right to speak to me that way in my own home." Landon stepped between us, hands raised placatingly. "Let's all just calm down. Mom's going through a tough time, and I'm happy to help her out." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He was taking her side, enabling her entitled behavior at the expense of our marriage. "This isn't just about money, Landon," I said, my voice trembling with frustration. "She's inserting herself into our lives, our home, without any regard for boundaries or respect." Eloise scoffed. "Respect? Please. You should be grateful I'm here to show you how to be a proper wife and homemaker." That was the final straw. "Get out," I snarled, pointing towards the door. "Get out of my home right now." Eloise simply laughed, that infuriating smirk plastered on her face. "You'll have to take that up with my son, dear. I'm not going anywhere." As she sauntered off, leaving me seething, I turned to Landon with a look of utter disbelief. His apologetic expression said it all. He had chosen his mother's side, no matter the cost to our marriage. A few days later, I overheard a hushed conversation between Eloise and Landon in the kitchen. Curiosity got the better of me, and I paused to listen. "Can't keep doing this behind her back," Landon was saying, his voice strained. "She's going to find out eventually." Eloise scoffed. "Don't be such a coward. You know this investment is our ticket to financial freedom. Mallory will thank us in the long run." "Investment?" My ears perked up at that. What were they hiding from me? "But using our savings without her knowledge? It's not right, Mother," Landon protested weakly. "Nonsense," Eloise snapped. "That money is as much mine as it is yours. I'm your mother, and I know what's best." I'd heard enough. Pushing open the kitchen door, I fixed them both with a steely glare. "What's going on here? What investment are you talking about?" Eloise paled but quickly regained her composure. It's nothing for you to worry your pretty little head about, dear. Don't give me that, I growled. If it involves our finances, I have every right to know. Landon looked like a deer caught in headlights. Honey, it's just a small business venture. Nothing major. Then why keep it a secret? I demanded. Show me the details right now. Eloise opened her mouth to protest, but I cut her off with a sharp look. Landon had no choice but to retrieve a folder from his study, filled with financial statements and investment prospectuses. As I flipped through the pages, my heart sank. Eloise had convinced Landon to sink a substantial portion of our savings into a high-risk startup venture, all without my knowledge or consent. Are you out of your minds? I cried, slamming the folder down on the table. This is our life savings, our future. How could you gamble it away like this? It's a sound investment, Eloise insisted, her eyes glinting with greed. Just you wait. We'll be rolling in dough before you know it. I rounded on Landon, fury blazing in my eyes. And you went along with this? After everything we've built together, you'd throw it all away on your mother's whims? Landon flinched, unable to meet my gaze. I'm sorry, Mal. I thought it was the right thing to do. How disgust and betrayal churned within me. Not only had they undermined me financially, but they had also shattered the trust and respect that formed the foundation of our marriage. Get out, I snarled, pointing at Eloise. Get out of my house, you conniving snake. Eloise simply laughed, that infuriating cackle grating on my nerves. You can't get rid of me that easily, dear. I'm here to stay, whether you like it or not. As she sauntered out, leaving a trail of smug condescension in her wake, I knew this was only the beginning. The battle lines had been drawn, and I was prepared to fight tooth and nail to protect what was rightfully mine. In the days that followed, the tension in our home was thick enough to cut with a knife. Eloise continued to strut around like she owned the place, making snide comments and undermining me at every turn. Honestly, dear, you'd think with your fancy career you'd know how to keep a proper home, she sneered one morning, eyeing the stack of dishes in the sink with disdain. Before I could respond, Landon stepped in, ever the peacekeeper. Now, Mom, Mallory works hard. Cut her some slack. Eloise sniffed. Well, she could certainly do with learning a few homemaking skills. A woman's place is in the home, after all. That antiquated remark set my teeth on edge. I'll run my home however I see fit, I snapped, and I don't need your unsolicited advice. Such hostility, Eloise tutted, shaking her head. It's no wonder Landon is so stressed, having to deal with your attitude day in and day out. Landon shifted uncomfortably, refusing to meet my gaze. My heart sank as the realization dawned on me. He was siding with his mother, just as he'd done with the investment fiasco. You can't be serious, I said, my voice trembling with disbelief. After everything she's put us through, you're still going to defend her? Landon sighed, running a hand through his hair. Mal, she's my mother. I have to look out for her. At the expense of our marriage? I cried. She's been nothing but a toxic presence in our lives, manipulating you and undermining me at every turn. Eloise scoffed. Don't be so melodramatic, dear. I'm only trying to help. Help? I whirled on her, fury blazing in my eyes. You've done nothing but cause chaos and rift in our home. And for what? Your own selfish gain. Before they could respond, there was a knock at the door. Grateful for the interruption, I stormed off to answer it, my head spinning with a whirlwind of emotions. It was my friend Kara, a welcome sight amidst the turmoil. Mallory, what's going on? She asked, immediately sensing the tension in the air. I ushered her inside, shaking my head in disbelief. Over coffee, I unloaded everything. Eloise's power plays, the secret investment, Landon's betrayal. Kara listened with a sympathetic ear, her brow furrowed in concern. That's absolutely unacceptable, she said once I'd finished. Landon needs to get his priorities straight, and Eloise needs to back off before she destroys your marriage completely. I sighed heavily. I don't know what to do anymore. It's like I don't even recognize my husband these days. He's so deep under his mother's thumb. Kara reached across the table, squeezing my hand reassuringly. Don't give up just yet. We'll figure out a way to get through this, to make them see reason. You can't let that wretched woman win. As I looked into my friend's determined eyes, a newfound resolve began to stir within me. I wouldn't go down without a fight, not when my entire life was at stake. Emboldened by Kara's support, I decided it was time to confront Landon and lay down the law. This toxic situation couldn't continue any longer. Something had to give. That evening, after Eloise had retired to her room, I cornered Landon in the living room. "We need to talk," I said firmly. "This can't go on." Landon sighed, already looking defeated. "Mal, please don't start another fight." "I'm not here to fight," I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. "I'm here to give you an ultimatum." That got his attention. He sat up straighter, eyeing me warily. "An ultimatum? What are you talking about?" I took a deep breath, steeling my resolve. "Your mother has to go. This living situation, her constant interference in our lives, it ends now. Either she moves out or I file for divorce." Landon's eyes widened in shock. "Divorce? Mallory, don't be ridiculous. She's my mother. I can't just kick her out." "Then I'm afraid you've made your choice," I said, my heart heavy but my mind resolved. "Because I refuse to live like this any longer. Your mother is toxic, manipulative, and she's driven a wedge between us that may be irreparable." Eloise chose that moment to saunter in, having clearly eavesdropped on our conversation. My, what's all this fuss about?" she drawled. Shooting me a smug look, I fixed her with a steely glare. "It's time for you to leave, Eloise. Pack your things and get out of my home." She threw her head back with a mocking laugh. "And just who do you think you are to give me orders, little girl? This is my son's home, too, and I'll stay as long as I please." Landon looked stricken, torn between his mother and his wife. "Mallory, please. Let's discuss this rationally." "There's nothing to discuss," I said firmly. "Either she goes, or our marriage is over. The choice is yours." Eloise scoffed, shooting Landon a pointed look. "Well, you're not going to let this ungrateful shrew walk all over you, are you? I'm your flesh and blood." To my utter disbelief and heartbreak, Landon wavered, unable to stand up to his mother's manipulative ways. I can't just kick you out, Mom. This is your home, too." As those words left his mouth, I knew it was over. He had chosen his mother's toxicity over our marriage, our commitment, our life together. Tears stung my eyes as the weight of his betrayal hit me full force. "Then we have nothing left to discuss," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'll be meeting with a lawyer first thing tomorrow." As I turned and walked away, Eloise's victorious laughter rang in my ears, mocking the shattered remains of what was once a loving relationship. But even through the pain, a newfound determination took root. I would fight for what was rightfully mine, no matter the cost. True to my word, I met with a divorce attorney the very next day. Nancy Alvarez was a no-nonsense woman who listened intently as I laid out the sordid details of my marital woes. Financial deception, emotional manipulation, a complete disregard for boundaries. Nancy shook her head gravely. "I'm so sorry you've had to endure this, Mallory. No one deserves to be treated that way." I took a deep, steadying breath. "I want to file for divorce immediately, and I need to protect myself financially. That snake Eloise has already convinced Landon to squander a chunk of our savings." Nancy nodded grimly. "We'll make sure you get everything you're entitled to. Document everything. Emails, texts, any evidence you can find of their misconduct. It'll help build a solid case." Over the next few weeks, I diligently gathered proof of Landon and Eloise's schemes, recording their heated arguments when possible. The evidence was damning, but part of me still clung to the faint hope that Landon might come to his senses. That hope was swiftly shattered one evening when I returned home from work. Eloise was perched smugly on the couch, Landon at her side. Well, if it isn't the wayward wife," she sneered. "We've been expecting you." Dread pooled in my gut. "What's going on?" Landon shifted uncomfortably. "Mallory, Mom and I have been talking. We think it's best if you move out for a while, until this whole mess blows over." My jaw dropped in disbelief. "You can't be serious? You're actually taking her side in this?" Eloise clucked her tongue. "Don't be so overdramatic, dear. It's just until you come to your senses and stop this ridiculous divorce nonsense." White-hot fury surged through me. "This is my house, you deranged hag. I'm not going anywhere." Now, no need for name-calling," Eloise chided, that infuriating smirk on her face. "We're only looking out for what's best." That was the final straw. Whipping out my phone, I hit record. "Say that again, Eloise. Say it right into this camera." Her eyes widened, but Landon stepped in front of me. "Mallory, stop this at once. You're only making things worse." Worse, I laughed bitterly. You two have completely destroyed any semblance of trust or respect in this marriage. Well, I've got news for you. I'm not going anywhere. In fact, I pulled out the thick manila envelope containing all the evidence I'd compiled. I've already filed for divorce, and with this paper trail of manipulation and financial misconduct, the courts are going to side with me. For the first time, Eloise's smug mask cracked, panic seeping into her eyes. Landon simply stared, slack-jawed, as the full weight of my words sank in. You can't be serious, he sputtered. After everything we've been through? You mean after you chose your mother over our marriage at every turn? I shot back, fury and hurt mingling in my voice. This is the consequence of your actions. You've made your bed, now you can lie in it without me. As I stormed out, leaving them gaping in stunned silence, a strange sense of liberation washed over me. The battle was finally over, and I had emerged victorious, battered but unbroken. The divorce proceedings were a whirlwind of legal battles and emotional turmoil. Landon and Eloise fought tooth and nail, trying every underhanded tactic to maintain control of our assets. But Nancy was a bulldog, using the damning evidence I'd compiled to systematically dismantle their case. They've got nothing, she assured me after one particularly heated court session. The judge sees right through their manipulative schemes. You're going to get everything you deserve, Mallory. True to her word, the verdict was a resounding victory in my favor. The court awarded me sole ownership of our home, the bulk of our savings and investments, and even Landon's prized sports car collection as recompense for his deceit. The looks on Eloise and Landon's faces as the judge read out the ruling will forever be seared into my memory. A delicious blend of shock, outrage, and impotent fury. For once, they were the ones left powerless and humiliated. As I walked out of the courthouse that day, head held high, I caught a glimpse of them huddled together on the steps. Eloise was raging, her face twisted into an ugly sneer, while Landon simply stared ahead in numb disbelief. "You've ruined us," Eloise shrieked, causing passers-by to turn and stare. "This is all your fault, you spineless fool. Now we're penniless, all because you couldn't control that wretched woman." I couldn't help but savor the moment, a twisted sense of vindication washing over me. After everything they'd put me through, their arrogance had finally caught up with them. In the weeks that followed, the reality of their situation truly set in. Landon was forced to downsize to a cramped apartment, trading in his luxury sedan for an aging Toyota. Eloise, who had always lorded her wealth and status over others, now had to rely on her son's meager salary to support her lavish tastes. It was a complete reversal of fortunes, and the gossipy tongues of our community didn't let them forget it. Everywhere they went, whispers and sidelong glances followed, broadcasting the sordid tale of their downfall for all to hear. I, on the other hand, was thriving. With my financial stability secured and that toxic weight lifted from my shoulders, I was able to pour my energy into my career. Within months, I was promoted to a leadership role at my company, spearheading major initiatives and earning the respect of my peers. As for my personal life, the house had never felt more like a home. I gutted and renovated it from top to bottom, erasing every last trace of Eloise's narcissistic touch. It was a fresh start, a sanctuary of peace and tranquility that I had fought so hard to reclaim. On the rare occasion that I crossed paths with Landon or his mother, the dynamic was palpable. They averted their eyes, shrinking from my gaze like scolded children. The smug arrogance that had once defined them was nowhere to be found, replaced by a simmering resentment that spoke volumes of the consequences they now faced. It was justice, pure and simple. They had sown the seeds of their own misery through deceit and treachery, and I took vindictive pleasure in watching them reap what they'd sown. The years ticked by, and with each passing season, the wounds inflicted by Landon and Eloise's betrayal faded into dull scars. I threw myself into renovating my home, determined to erase every last trace of their toxic influence. Out went the gaudy furnishings Eloise had insisted upon, replaced by sleek, modern pieces that reflected my own refined tastes. The garish wallpapers were torn down, the walls repainted in soothing neutral tones. Even the landscaping was overhauled, transforming the yard into a lush, tranquil oasis. As the renovations progressed, it was as if a weight was being lifted from my shoulders, bit by bit. This was my sanctuary, my hard-won haven, and I would allow no lingering remnants of that poisonous chapter to sully it. At work, too, my star was on the rise. With the shackles of my turbulent marriage firmly behind me, I was able to pour my undivided focus into my career. My dedication and leadership skills didn't go unnoticed, and within a year, I was promoted to a senior executive role, spearheading major initiatives for the company. The money, while welcome, was almost secondary to the sense of pride and accomplishment that came with my success. I had clawed my way back from the brink, rising like a phoenix from the ashes of that nightmarish ordeal with Landon and Eloise. Speaking of that wretched duo, I encountered them on occasion, either in passing at the grocery store or the rare public event. Each time, it was impossible not to revel in the stark contrast between our circumstances. Landon, once so assured and arrogant, now moved through the world with a hunched, defeated posture. His suits were ill-fitting and cheap, his hairline receding rapidly. The youthful charm that had once drawn me in was nowhere to be found, replaced by the haggard demeanor of a man beaten down by the consequences of his own misdeeds. And Eloise, oh, how the mighty had fallen! The woman who had once turned heads with her designer ensembles and perfectly coiffed hair now resembled a tarnished, withered husk of her former self. Gone were the luxuries she had so coveted, replaced by thrift store cast-offs and an ever-present sneer of resentment. Whenever our paths crossed, the atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension and recrimination. Landon always averted his gaze, unable to muster even a flicker of defiance. Eloise, on the other hand, would fix me with a venomous glare, her eyes burning with naked hatred and a simmering sense of entitlement, as if she still believed, deep down, that she deserved better than the humble existence she now endured. I, meanwhile, took great pleasure in greeting them with a serene smile, every inch the picture of poise and gracious magnanimity. My mere presence was a constant reminder of their failures, their utter lack of foresight and self-control that had propelled them down this path. It was a delicious, slow-burn revenge, one that unfolded with each passing year, as the chasm between our trajectories grew ever wider. While they wallowed in the squalid depths of their own making, I soared to new heights, personally, professionally, financially. The sweet taste of vindication was a potent, intoxicating elixir, and I savored every drop, secure in the knowledge that I had emerged victorious from that crucible of turmoil and treachery. Landon and Eloise's misery was the ultimate justice, the deserved culmination of their own avarice and malice. Avarice and malice. Avarice and malice.